friends, and welcome back to Like Anime. My name's George, and with me is Tony.
I am Tony.
You are. You
I
do not
am.
deny this fact.
I have been. I am currently, and I probably will continue to be.
Mm,
Probably.
in the Tonyverse. We're back. Wait,
I
what?
was gonna say like in all universes, I suppose, but maybe not.
Who's to say, really?
Yeah, in another universe, I could be an Angela. I suppose
Mm.
that was gonna be my name if I was a girl.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Angela.
Yeah.
Well, we are back to talk about a little show that we covered the first season of. That's Fruits Basket 2019.
Mm.
2019 being the year it came out because it's sort of a redux or a redo of the anime.
Yeah, there was one back in 2001 or something, I think.
And I think you saw all of that, but I only saw half of it. I realized in doing in revisiting this. I mean, me for one, I've learned a heck of a lot more because this second season we're about to talk about, goes way deeper.
It's all new for both of us, except the parts that they had adapted into the original first season. But there's not much of that.
Yeah, we'll get into that,
Just a couple things.
which is kind of interesting. But yeah, I've enjoyed this season. I like this first season. I was like, yeah, it's good. But this one kind of upped it for me, where been brought to tears a couple times, and yeah, I feel like I've been more endeared to these characters, or a lot of them anyway.
Mm.
And it's kind of a slow burn, I think, on like how things are revealed and what makes you feel more for these characters. Where at once you might be like, oh, they're kind of annoying, but then you learn their backstory and whatnot. You're thinking.
I'm trying to think of who you found annoying.
Well, I mean, not everyone. There's just some characters like Kyo. Not that I find him extremely annoying, but when you
guess I could
first
see
meet
that.
him, he's a bit annoying. At
Sure,
this point,
he's obnoxious. Yeah,
yeah. At this point, know so much about him that it's not really even a consideration. It's like
yeah. That's just him.
yeah,
Though he's a
Yeah.
lot better than he used to be as well. So
yeah, he's improved.
yeah. The young kid, I find him annoying still.
Oh, the one's kind of a brat.
Yeah,
Yeah, Hiro.
yeah. Hero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while we're on annoying characters, Ayame, which is Yuki's brother, is. I mean, I watched it dubbed. And
Oh, okay.
his voice.
Oh, he's pretty annoying in the Japanese as well.
Okay. Yeah.
But
his character. Yeah.
he does sort of endear you to him over time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's another one where, like,
Yeah.
this season, going into it, every scene he would be in, I'd be like, ugh. But now, after seeing he's not even in this season a lot, but like he
Right.
got some moments that made him gave him more depth, I guess. Like he wasn't so
Yeah.
just like
And
one dimensional.
And I think he's toned down a bit as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is good. But yeah, we were talking, before we got on mic about this, like how are we going to talk about this season? Because there's so many character moments, but then there's story elements, and they all tie in to one another. It's not like you find out, it's not like they're segmented. They're all interwoven, and a lot of them play on each other.
Yeah, a lot of intertwined stories that a lot touch each other enough that it's hard to talk about one without talking about the other.
Yeah.
And since they all sort of do that, then like the thing as a whole, it's all related. Like there are bits that are like pretty separate. Like we could talk about Momiji, like
Yeah.
his little episode that he had, but it's not important to the bigger stories, I guess, right?
That's true, and it might
Yeah.
play into something later.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I mean, yeah.
There's not much time left. There's only 13 episodes past where we've watched,
Yeah.
and we'll stay tuned for that. We'll be covering the finale.
Yeah, they got some stuff to wrap up, but I think 13 episodes should be sufficient, right? I think so.
Yeah, and I feel good about it. Like I don't know. We'll get to that, I guess. But yeah, just warning, we're going to try our best to, talk about this in a cohesive way, but it might get tricky.
And also warning, because we're talking about this in depth, we're going to spoil everything
Yeah.
in this season of the show. So if you haven't watched it and you don't want to be spoiled, pause it, go watch it real quick. It should only take you, 12 hours to watch the entire second season. Then come back.
Quick 12 hours.
Quick 12 hours. I watched it all the way through yesterday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I did not. I broke it up over several days.
Straight through one day. Yep.
I was like, dang it, we need to not do this in the future where we have a week to watch 25 episodes.
I mean, realistically, we've had like 5 weeks to watch 25 episodes, but
That's true. I watched like 2.
Been doing other stuff.
Yeah. And we've also toned down the podcast of like, it was getting kind of heavy of what we were, covering. So it's like kind of focusing more on,
It's getting kind of hectic. It's getting. Sorry, you said heavy, but it just made me think of that.
Hectic and heavy. Here we go. Yeah. So we're not going to like cover everything that happens in every episode. There's a lot of sweet moments. There's a lot of things that they go into a haunted house at one point. We're not going to cover that stuff, I don't think, but we're going to try to hit the big moments, the big character moments, the big story moments, and stuff that, maybe we liked. I don't know. But that being said, I figured we'd talk about Yuki first, because he had this whole student council arc, or I don't know, like it's again interwoven through this whole season.
Yes, he was elected to the student council at the sort of the end-ish of last season, I guess.
Yeah.
And now he's, the new school year is starting, I guess, right?
Yeah, they had summer break, and then it's a new year. Yeah.
But I thought their school year started in April, which would be before summer break. I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway,
sure.
So he's starting to take over his student council duties from the other guy, the previous president, who I don't remember his name.
Yeah,
he's not super important.
He was very happy that Yuki, was, because at first Yuki was not going to do it, and then he said, "No, I need to I need to say yes to things and put myself out there," and so he did it, and it made that guy really happy.
Yeah, initially Yuki wasn't going to run for student council president because his brother had been student council president. And then he decided to run for student council president despite the fact that his brother had been student council president. Ooh, big character change. Anyway.
Which is, yeah, it's big for him to like put himself out there and try
Yeah. He wanted to be invisible, but he wasn't as much as he tried, I guess, right? But yeah, that's all last season stuff. This season, he's now the student council president, and he gets introduced to his vice president. That apparently the outgoing president chooses all of the people that will be working under you. I guess.
Yeah, he didn't have a say in.
Yeah, you get, or maybe there was something last season where Yuki said, "Oh, I trust you to pick good people," or something like.
Yeah.
He didn't want to be bothered with it or something. Maybe I don't remember.
Maybe
that might have been a thing. If that was a thing, let me know in the comments or on Twitter or one of those places. Must have been,
because they couldn't have been voted on, because there's a episode early on in this season where Yuki's fan club girls are speculating on who's part of the student council. They want to make sure there's no ladies in there for competition's sake.
Yeah, and I think it was stated pretty matter-of-factly that they were chosen by the previous president, but I just don't remember if that was like an arrangement he and Yuki had, or if that's like a normal thing. I don't know. I don't remember.
But his name, the vice president, Kakeru Manabe, I wrote down his name.
Yep, that's his name.
But yeah, he and Yuki have sort of a, I don't know, they have a relationship arc in this season.
Yeah, they have a cat and mouse relationship. No, like a I was gonna say a cat and dog relationship, but yeah. So Manabe is basically a brown-haired version of Kyo, but not a Zodiac.
And much more chilled out. Like,
I guess that's
he's
true.
Not like high strung at all.
Yeah, he's not. It's not like his life's mission to defeat Yuki or something like that. But he has a lot of the same personality traits that Kyo has. I think
so. Yeah. Like a slacker Kyo.
Yeah, I don't know. Kyo's kind of a slacker too, a
That's
little
true.
bit. Lazy cats laying in the sun, taking naps.
Must be nice.
Mm, he does sleep a lot, Manabe.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, and
Fall
eat.
asleep anywhere. And then we've got so that he's the vice president,
Hmm.
and then aren't there like two secretaries or something, but there's also the treasurer.
Yes. Who's yeah. The other Machi is the treasurer,
Mm-hmm.
and she is important. But these other two, I mean, they're fine. Kimi, which I kind of like her.
Mm,
Um, she's just kind of funny, but there's not much to her character. And then
yeah.
Makoto is the kind of
Oh,
is the high strung one of
yeah,
the
yeah. He's very high strung. He's very rules oriented.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Kimmy's like, I don't know. Yeah, she's kind of funny, I guess, but
yeah,
that's
just
about it.
yeah, comedic relief. I
Yeah.
guess there's a lot of comedic relief in the show. But yeah, she's kind of funny. Like she just like taunts the Yuki fan club and like
Mm,
is I don't know, kind of flirtatious with Yuki, but
mm. And supposedly everyone else too. We just never see any of that. But
yeah,
it's
yeah,
definitely said that
it's
like
kind of a
she
flirt.
flirts with everyone. But then we find that she has, the other side to her personality, like the way she behaves with Manabe. Like
Mm.
she's like very sweet and everything, and then Manabe says something stupid and she just punches him in the gut, Eh.
Yeah, he kind of deserves it
And then
sometimes.
talks in a very serious, goes from her cutesy voice to her, I guess, normal voice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of cracks there. But yeah, Machi is she's like this really quiet girl who's kind of strange. When Yuki first he comes into the student council like room they have office or whatever, and there's just like it's all dark and there's papers everywhere, and she's like just being weird.
She's like cleaning up, I think, at that point. But
Yeah, but it's awkward. Like she's just very socially awkward, and at first we don't know much about her, but then by the end of this we get to
learn a bit more about her.
yeah.
Not a whole lot more, but a bit more. Yeah. So that's Yuki and the student council, and I mean, I guess the next time, what do we see with the student council? They have to plan some stuff, right?
Yeah, they do. I mean, there's like patrolling that they do, and
Mm.
and they help out clubs and stuff. We see some of
Mm-hmm.
that,
Yeah.
and a lot of it's just for the sake of Yuki. I think taking on more responsibility, trying to deal with these student council people. It's kind of a mess
Yeah.
at first, and then yeah, then eventually the cultural festival becomes a thing, and they they're planning for that and doing stuff.
Yeah. I guess that's the big thing they were planning for.
And I mean, I guess there's not much more after that except that the Machi stuff,
Right.
which there's a point where so Manabe, I don't know, he wants the student council to be like this special defense force of the school,
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
he has this whole like just like pie in the sky idea that they can as in like Power Rangers or Ultraman or something, they can
Right.
defend the Earth from invaders.
Or the school, anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so there's a point where they steal a whiteboard from somewhere, and he's all right. Who wants?
Well, it's super cutesy girl. Kimmy
Yeah.
asks the teacher if she can have it, and the teacher gives it to her.
I mean, that's what she said. I don't believe her.
I kind of believe her.
You believe her? I thought something was gonna come of that because it was just like after her explanation, Yuki was like,
I don't think she would just steal it though. Like I think
Maybe
like
not.
that's the joke is that she literally just
Can we
put
have
on the
this?
charm and asked the teacher, and
You
teacher,
say
probably a male teacher, said,
it?
"Yeah, yeah, go ahead and take it."
All right, it's her feminine wiles.
Yes.
Fair enough. Sorry, Kimi, for doubting you. If you're listening. But yeah, so once they get the whiteboard, Manabe's like, all right, we got to figure out, which color, hero you are, like Power Rangers. There's like the red or Super Sentai. There's the red, Ranger and the yellow and all this. And so trying to figure that out. And then at one point, well, it's weird. At first, they're not taking it seriously, the rest of them. And then like Yuki starts to like, play along. And so he asks Machi, like, what's your favorite color? And
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a matter of Manabe is sort of forcing this thing, And so they're all like, this is stupid. This is a waste of time. But Manabe basically won't let it go. So Yuki's kind of like, all right, well, let's just get this over with then. Manabe wants to be Black Ranger or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
He wants to be the black.
Yeah.
And he says that Yuki should be the red.
He's the leader.
Because he's the leader, which apparently is the norm. And I think he suggests that, what's her name again?
Machi?
Machi? Mm. Yeah. I think he suggests Machi should be pink, but then Kimi is like, no, I have to be pink. And,
yeah.
you know.
It starts a whole like.
Yeah. And then he, Yuki asks Machi, you know, well, what color would you like to be? You know, just pick a color, your favorite color, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And she's unable to answer.
Which is, you know, up until this point, par for the course. Like,
yeah,
pretty quiet. But it sets up this whole thing later, which is much later in the season, you know, where
much later.
We figured we'd talk about this first because it's like kind of contained to itself in a way. But I'm trying to remember exactly what happens, but Machi starts to this is still on her mind, we realize, about the, you know, that he asked her what her favorite color, and then oh yeah, she's getting bullied by some of Yuki's fan club girls.
Yeah.
And Manabe and Yuki are like right around the corner, and Yuki's about to do something, and he's like, no, don't. And so it's all, you know, in service of hearing what Machi thinks of Yuki, because the girls are like pestering her, and they're like, you know, you said this about Yuki, and that ain't right. We're defending his honor, and so like, what do you really think of him? And that's when we kind of like get into her perspective a little bit. But she doesn't think he's a prince, and she thinks he's lonely, even though he's, you know, people dote over him and all that, which is very apt. I mean, she's spot on. But then we also learn that she's been kind of has like an attraction to him, or some sort of, she can't get him off her mind, because she keeps thinking about, he asked her what favorite color she liked. And
well, she also, the other thing she says in that scene is that she thinks he's an airhead.
Oh yes. Yeah.
And the reason she thinks he's an airhead is because he asks her these stupid questions that she doesn't know the answers to, because she's never thought about it.
Yeah.
Like, what's your favorite color? What does it matter? Why would I have a favorite color? Sort of thing.
Yeah. And
I forget what the other question is that he asks her that ends up bringing this whole thing out.
Like full circle. Yeah. Where it's like,
but he asks her another question, which is like a normal question to ask someone. And she's like, why would you ask me that? I don't know the answer to that. She gets all angry-ish about it. And
then we learn, taking this a step further, we also learn that she is the half-sister of Manabe.
Right.
And that their parents, they have the same dad but different mothers. And his mom was the mistress of his dad, whereas Machi, you know, was the actual, you know, betrothed. Came from that, you know, relationship. And so there's a dispute after the father has died of who gets the inheritance. And so we learn that
apparently he was very rich.
Yeah, supposedly.
That's all we really know.
Yeah. But supposedly Manabe says he kind of, you know, there was this whole thing about the moms each like kind of coming down on their children and making them, you know, behave in a certain way to become the heir, or I don't know how that works, like in a court setting, or they don't really elaborate on that. But essentially Manabe, like, you know, threw a fit when he was a kid, and it all, you know, his mom like backed off. But Machi, her mom, is, you know, remained steadfast, and because of that, she seems to have a lack of personality. Like, she doesn't, you know, or at least a personality crisis. Like, she doesn't really, she's kind of lost in like what her mom wants her to be, and not really she doesn't really know who she is. And so I think Yuki asking her these questions is like forcing her to look inward and like think about herself, and she doesn't like it. But then, yeah, it leads to a scene where, which I really like, the whole maple leaf scene.
Yeah, is that what it was? It was he ran into her or something, and things spilled out of her bag or her purse or whatever. And then he's helping her pick them up, and it might have to do with the bookmark. Like, she at first denies that it's the leaf that he gave her, because at some point they go on a class trip to Okinawa, I think. No, not Okinawa, Kyoto.
Kyoto, yeah.
Yeah. And he brings back a maple leaf for her as a souvenir, because he couldn't be bothered to buy a real souvenir. No,
I picked this up off the ground.
They all basically said that they didn't want anything, and so he just, for some reason, brings that back to her. And then he's asking, like, well, do you like maple leaves? Do you like? I don't know. He's asking her something like that. And, and she gets all flustered. And
I love when she says like, is that the maple leaf I got you? She's like, no. And then later she's like, well, it could be. I have too many maple leaves. I'm not sure.
So many maple leaves, I don't know. And then Manabe shows up and basically asks that same question. Oh, is that the maple leaf he brought back? No, but it could be, is her answer. Like, just like, right. Yeah.
Which is so great for her personality. It's like, she's so flustered and unsure. And then, and so then I think because of that, Yuki is like, well, maybe red's your favorite color, even though that leaf is clearly orange. And then she starts to think, oh, maybe I do like red. Anyway, so that's, I don't know.
But Yuki's the leader, so he's red.
Right.
This creates a problem that never gets resolved.
Maybe she likes orange.
Maybe she likes orange.
So suffice to say, this I was into this whole thing, and it kind of ties into what we need to talk about with Yuki and Toru, what's, the stuff that developed this season. But it seems to be like a budding relationship between these two, as awkward as it may be at this moment.
Yeah, and it's sort of, Yuki's, I think it's there to sort of demonstrate Yuki's growth as a person, because earlier he wouldn't have cared, he wouldn't have paid any attention, he wouldn't have, well, I mean, he wouldn't have been on the student council to begin with, but
he's really trying to form bonds.
And he recognizes that she has some issues, and he's just trying to be there if she needs his support, basically, right?
And I suppose he's emulating Toru.
Yeah,
to a certain extent. Like, what would she do?
Right.
In this situation. So that also brings to mind whether or not this is, in his mind, if this is just part of his growth and like it's all new to him, or if, alongside that he has, feelings for her, because it seems like she does. She has this fixation on him, even though she calls him an airhead and says he's lonely, and is sort of disparaging him.
I mean,
she's being honest.
She definitely doesn't mean them in a negative way. Like the airhead thing is because he asks these, what she considers stupid, vapid questions. Like, what's your favorite color? And the lonely thing, she just thinks he looks lonely, I think is what she says.
Yeah. But then at some point she noticed a change, which is obviously Toru's influence. But so I imagine this will be revisited next season.
I would think so, yeah.
And I guess we talked off mic about this, but there's this, Yuki has this heart-to-heart with, I think it's with Manabe, actually.
Manabe, yeah.
Yeah, and he reveals that his feelings about Toru to him, even though it's probably, I guess it's a good person for him to confide in, because he's not like in the mix, but.
Right. Yeah, it's weird because during this conversation where Yuki is explaining everything, like, he says a lot of things that he would not be able to actually say to Manabe, because Manabe doesn't know these things, doesn't know about the zodiac and everything.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing Yuki's just thinking those things instead of actually saying them. But then that makes me wonder, would Manabe actually understand what the heck he was talking about if you cut all those bits out? Anyway, doesn't actually matter. Just like, during that whole scene, it kept like recurring to me, like, okay, he can't be saying this, so he's not saying this. But then the next thing he says sort of relies on him having said that. So I don't think there's any way Manabe would have known what the hell he was talking about. But but anyway, yes, the crux of the conversation is that Yuki's feelings about Toru. I guess he's just sort of felt better when she was around at first. And then he thought maybe he was in love with her and like started to sort of pursue that. And then he realized that he wasn't romantically in love with her, but that he still loved her, but more of like a mother sort of love one has for a mother, I guess.
Yeah.
Because she sort of takes care of him and everyone, really. I mean, that's just Toru, right?
Yeah. And we'll get into that more later, but it's filling a void for him. And yeah, he like has that realization that she's giving him this maternal love that he never had. So it's not just that she like mothers him, but that she exudes this love that's very non-judgmental and open, that he is become like, I don't know, accustomed to.
Yeah, and the way this ties into the student council stuff that we were talking about is it looks like Yuki and Machi, is that her name? Machi?
Yeah.
Are maybe heading down a romantic path, possibly, which this sort of explains away his romantic feelings towards Toru. So that sort of frees him up to be able to pursue Machi romantically.
If he's into that, which there hasn't really been an indication that he is.
Right.
But yes.
It seems like maybe that's what they're hinting at is going to be happening, but yeah, it's just speculation, I guess, at this point. But yes, it frees him up to pursue other romantic interests, which then sort of helps answer our question from season 1: Team Yuki or Team Kyo?
That's right.
Well, there is no Team Yuki anymore because Yuki is,
Yes. I mean, yeah. Yuki's kind of taken a back seat to that.
Yes.
Although I will add,
he has written her off as a romantic interest, it would seem.
It would seem, yeah. I would argue that there's a slim chance of a Freudian attraction there, but
Oedipal, I think.
Oh, Oedipal, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, sort of the same.
Yeah. Along those lines.
Yeah.
More directly Oedipal, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it probably isn't going to go that way, which I think is cool. Like, I think it's cool for his, nice for his character to have this realization and to respect Toru, on that level, because I feel like when this sort of thing happens in the real world, often those lines get blurred, the attraction versus the nurturing, or the support, that you get from someone, the confidant or a advocate, where it's like it's hard to, sometimes confusing those feelings. But it's a very mature, step for him to take where he can like recognize that and respect it. So it's really cool. I like that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what we're getting to next.
So I think at this point we're just gonna have to change gears.
All right.
We're gonna switch to a different character. It's actually two characters. It's Uotani Arisa, who is one of Toru's good friends, blonde, tall girl that works several jobs, and Koreno, who's a new character, a new Soma character we learned about.
Right. We did not. I don't think we met him at all in season 1.
I don't think so, because I think the first time we meet him is Uotani is through her.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Unless we might have just seen him in the background or something in season 1, but we don't know his name or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, this is sort of a little side story, I guess, but Uotani meets a guy at her work at the convenience store that is sort of a klutz and sort of reminds him of Toru in that regard. And she, of course, immediately takes a liking to him because of that, because he's amuses her, I guess, or something.
Well, and Uotani and Hanajima, they're best friends with Toru, and we learn like their past and stuff but they just think so highly of her. And so I think like a guy reminding Uotani of Toru is like, it's like the pinnacle of, character or something. So even though she's laughing at him in the moment, I think she's like really attracted to that, that I don't know, that side of someone.
And yeah, and then she tells Toru and Hana about it, that she met someone at her work that she kind of likes or something, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we don't hear anything about it for a while. And then, they ask about it later, and she's like, yeah, I haven't seen him again. And then, of course, what's the next scene in the show? It's her leaving one of her jobs and just sees him walking down the street and chases him down. And then he buys her lunch.
Yeah.
And then she misunderstands what he's saying and gets angry and storms out.
Keeping in mind she's like 17 or 18 and he's like 25 or so. I don't know. I'm not sure how old he is, but
they said 9 years older. So, yeah.
Okay. That's pretty close.
Yeah.
He's in his mid 20s. And so, yeah, she kind of has a misunderstanding, like you said, but then she kind of has an emotional, outburst in the restaurant and kind of runs out on him. But then I think he chases her out and they kind of,
Yeah. And he sort of explains like, I said that, but that's not what I meant when I said it. And anyway, and they have a short discussion, and it seems like he's interested in her as well. She's definitely interested in him. But then they sort of part ways.
I think he feels something but doesn't want to pursue it. And so then we learn later that he is a Soma. He's part of the Soma family, and he's kept really close to Akito, it turns out. And we learn more about that later. But essentially, like, when they're having their date, he's telling her, like, I don't get out of the house much. I've never been to a convenience store before.
It was the first time I've ever been to a convenience store.
She's like, what the?
26-year-old man, never been to a convenience store before?
Red
This doesn't
flag.
make sense. Why are you lying to me? Stop lying to me.
And so she kind of becomes consumed with this, and she's talking about it at school more. And even when she's not talking about it, it's pretty obvious that she's not present. Her mind is elsewhere, kind of fixed on him. And so it gets bad enough, or happens over a period of time, that Toru, starts to, not only does she start to worry about her and want to help her in a Toru fashion, but she kind of pieces things together. She ends up meeting Koreno at the beach house, which we haven't got to yet.
Which we'll get to later.
Yeah. But yeah, for this purposes of this, she meets him there. And so she starts to speculate, like, maybe this is the same guy. And so she takes it upon herself to go to the Soma, estate or whatever it's called. It's like a city. But, and then she can't bring herself to go in there directly, but then she ends up running into Momo, who is Momiji's younger sister that doesn't know Momiji is her brother.
And Momo's like, oh, Toru says something about Momiji, like lets it slip. Oh, she asks Momo about Momiji.
Yeah.
And then immediately realizes she shouldn't have said that because Momo doesn't know about Momiji.
Yeah.
But then she finds out that Momo does know about Momiji. And Momo says, oh yeah, I come here all the time to listen to Momiji play violin. I even started playing violin because I want to be like him. And he looks so much like my mom, and I just want him to be my older brother, because she doesn't know that he actually is her older brother. Anyway, and she says, they won't let me in at the front gate, but I know a secret way in. Follow me, Toru. And leads Toru to Momiji's place on the Soma estate.
Yeah, like behind a tree where Momo like watches him all the time, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, so that was cool too, because it set up, so we can briefly talk about that. But we learned that. So essentially, Momiji gets Toru to Kureno. But in the meantime, we learned that Momiji's dad had him stop playing violin because Momo took an interest in violin, and the dad was concerned that it was going to bring them, the odds of them, meeting or having a relationship, increased.
Well, it was they both had the same violin teacher because
yeah.
I don't know, his dad's stupid or something, I guess, and takes his daughter, who he doesn't want to meet his son, to the same violin teacher that his son goes to. I don't know.
It's like, I've already stripped you from your own family.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to take away violin from you. Like, so
Yeah.
like, what the heck?
Oh, your sister wants to play the violin, so you need to stop going to that teacher because she's the best teacher in town. I'm not going to take my daughter to a substandard teacher, or I don't know.
And I'm just assuming this violin teacher is within the Soma, you know, area of influence. And so it's like,
Yeah,
this
I
is the violin
suppose.
teacher, you know, with
I
in house,
guess.
you know,
Yeah,
so
I guess so.
you gotta go elsewhere, kid. So then, yeah, we have a heart wrenching moment about, you know, these two siblings that, you know, don't know, know each other, but don't, you know, can't embrace each other
Right.
as siblings. But then anyway, so then Toru gets to Koneno through, you know, and Momiji wants to go with her, but then he, you know, she's like, no, you can't do that. You'll get caught. It'll be worse. So he gives her directions. And
Draws her a map.
she happens to make it to him.
Yep.
Although I think someone else finds, or I was about to find her, and then he like is on to, you know, that she's snooping around, and he kind of saves her from being found out.
Yeah, I mean, basically what happens is she gets to his place and she starts to call out to him because she wants to talk to him.
Yeah,
about Uotani. But then she sees someone else, and so then she like sort of dodges to, you know, avoid being seen by this other person. And then of course she sees someone else in the place that she's dodged to, and she has to go a different way, and she ends up doing that a whole bunch until she's basically lost on the Soma estate and is sort of like hiding behind a bush, and then some lady opens her door and
who's there?
Yeah. And then, up comes Kuroena?
Koreno, I think.
Kureno? Oh, yeah, Kureno. Yeah. I switched a couple letters around there. Up comes Kureno and just says, oh, yeah, it's just me, old lady, whatever your name is. And then he leads Toru back to his place so that she can pass on the message that she wanted to pass on.
Yeah.
Because he recognizes her. He met her before at the
beach house.
The beach house. And then she passes on Uotani's contact information, saying, you know,
yes,
she really wants to talk to you. Here's her contact information if you want to talk to her. You know, might not be today, might not be tomorrow, might not be, you know, anytime soon. But if you ever feel the need, here's her information so you can contact her. And then, and then Toru basically leaves. I think she actually goes back to Momiji's.
And so I guess we'll pick up from here in a little bit because we're kind of saving a lot of this, you know, ball of fun stuff for the end. But that kind of ties us into someone else who has a special interest in Kureno, and that's another Soma family member who is Rin. We're introduced to her in this season, and she is the horse animal spirit girl.
Yep.
And she's got some issues.
Also known as Suzuki. Is that her?
Isuzu.
Isuzu. You're right. Suzuki, Isuzu. Some car name. That's all I remembered.
And so we're introduced to her essentially while she's in the hospital, and Hatsuhara, who is the ox, is visiting her, and like, who is this girl? He's bringing her flowers and stuff, and at first I thought it was like his mom or something. Like, I didn't know. Not that she you know, they look around the same age, but I was just like, who is this girl? But no, it turns out they're both Soma's cousins, and they've been dating. But she essentially like kicks him out, and, you know, just like it says, I don't need you, and, you know, and he takes it really rough, and he kind of has a freak out at school. And this is when we learn about it, because Toru and Kyo and Yuki and all them are sent to go calm him down. And yeah, so we kind of eventually learn their whole history of kind of growing up together, and kind of being him helping her a lot essentially throughout her life, and she's got a lot of issues.
Like, basically she starts off with this really loving family, her mother and father.
Oh yeah,
she has like this perfect family,
almost too perfect.
And then she, I don't know, it's the way it's explained is like rather suddenly they sort of snap and turn against her, all because she asks if they're ever unhappy or something like that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
why are you guys always so happy? And then her mom just like flips the table, and like goes nutso. And she, I guess, runs away and then ends up in a hospital. And it seems like she spends a lot of time in the hospital because she hasn't learned to take care of herself or something.
Like one of those people that's always having health issues.
Forgets to eat or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we get a bunch of her backstory and stuff. And like she's just basically trying to get back to a situation where like she was happy, like with her parents. But I think by the time we meet her, she's already pretty much realized like that's not going to happen. Like there's no way she's going to have that same idyllic existence with her parents ever again.
And I'm remembering now, like that you say that. So she runs away, and then she ends up in the hospital, and I forget how, but somehow Kyo's master, Kazuma, I think his name is. He gets involved, and he starts to help her, and Hatsuhara is there as well, and they've kind of recognized that something's wrong, and then her parents show up and are essentially like, we don't want you, and completely reject her, and Hatsuhara like stands up for her and yells at her parents, like, how could you, what's wrong with you people? And so that kind of starts their connection of Hatsuhara like taking care of her and looking out for her. So then
that somehow over time develops into a romantic relationship between the two of them.
They spend a lot of time together. So,
and then at the time that we meet her in the earliest time that we see her in the show, she's breaking up with him. Ending the relationship because she doesn't need him anymore, she says.
Although we
for
learn
whatever reason.
Although we learn later the truth is that his kindness has helped her so much, but she feels like she's only going to hurt him, so she's trying to like cut him out to save him.
She feels like she's taking advantage of his kindness, basically.
And that like almost like she knows better for him, and
right.
That, but it's also like kind of the mentality of a very depressed person of like, I'm hopeless and,
I can only bring you down.
Yeah, exactly. And so after that, they break up, and Hatsuhara is like keeps trying to like see her again. He loves her, and they love each other. But we learn that she is looking for a cure for the curse being the zodiac spirits, and she is
the Soma family curse.
Yes. Yeah. And she is either convinced or has a strong belief that the curse can be broken, and she really wants to break it. And I think she blames that for a lot of her issues, even though there's probably more to it with her. But yeah, so and then this coincides with her seeking out Shigure, where Toru lives, and because she's convinced that he knows more than he's letting on, but he's not really giving her much. He's an interesting guy. We should probably talk about at some point. Not that we learn much more about him, but he's like definitely shrouded in the most mystery and says, has a lot of double speak and like, and then also may just reveal like, what he's up to or not. I don't know. He's hard to follow on purpose, but much like to us, the audience, he gives her nothing. And, but then she goes back there again, but it's after we've learned about, her upbringing and her parents and all the trauma she's gone through. And she's walking into their house trying to find Shigure, and she's having like these flashbacks, and she's, basically having a panic attack. And, she's on the ground, or at least backed up against a corner, like on the ground, and Toru comes in, and she thinks it's her mom, or she thinks it's, I don't know, she confuses it with, what's going on in her head. But Toru essentially like takes care of her in that moment. But that scene, as I was trying to get to, was hard to watch. It was well done, but it was just very, traumatic for the viewer, I thought. But really conveyed, how deep in her emotional trauma she is.
So she had met Toru before that at the beach house.
Oh yeah, not like
So she like knows Toru, but she, didn't spend a lot of time with her, didn't get to know her, didn't really come to like her or anything like that. Uh, and the reason that Rin doesn't want to be around Toru or anything is because she feels the same way towards her as she does Haru. Like she's, just going to rely on her and use her basically. And yeah, that feeling sort of continues, but now she, after this episode where Toru has taken care of her, I don't know, she eases up a little bit, it seems like, and sort of accepts it a little bit more.
Very reluctantly and not like,
But at the same time, like Toru's like, oh, you want to break the curse too? Because she figured this out somehow. I don't remember exactly how, but
they finally have a conversation about it. Yeah, I think, but
and Toru's like, oh, you want to break the curse too? Let's work together. And Rin's just like, no.
But I think in Toru's mind, it's like, no, we're working together.
Yeah. We both want the same thing. It doesn't matter if we work together or not, I guess.
And there's a really, really sweet scene after Toru takes care of her where Rin, I forget exactly if Hatsuharu comes over or something happens where she like runs away and rushes out of the house and Toru goes after her and she reluctantly again like turns back and embraces her and just cries.
Yeah.
That's really tender scene. But yes, so during that conversation where Toru's like, let's team up, we can find out how to break the curse together. Rin confides in her that she thinks Koreno knows something, or like she's kind of on his trail of, I don't know, like he's a person of interest,
right?
And so to tie that into
just because he's so close to Akito, same reason that she thinks Shigure knows something. So
we'll touch on that later as well.
We must be getting close to some of these laters that we said.
I know, right? This one should be quick. I just wanted to set this up so we could segue into the parent-teacher meetings, which gets us ever closer. But basically, we're introduced to this new character, or not new character. She's a teacher at the school that Toru and everyone else go to, the high school, and her name's Mayuko. And she also has a bookstore that she works at. But basically, we learned that she had dated Shigure in the past, and the reason is because she had kind of fallen for Hattori, which is Shigure's, one of his best friends. And we had already covered this last season where he had this girl that he was going to marry, and then things went bad. Akito stepped in, and they had to wipe her memory, and Hattori is kind of living with this pain of, the aftermath of that. But we learned this girl was her best friend and also, had feelings for Hattori, and ended up dating Shigure just out of boredom. Like he was just there and he was like, you want to kill some time?
That's how Shigure like says it. Hey, you know what? You can't date him even though you want to. So why don't you date me? It's better than not dating anyone, I guess.
And I guess they never even kissed or anything. They just hung out in a room and read books, or I don't know, talked. It's like we could have just hung out and been friends. But anyway, so this is after the fact. After that, that's all dissolved. But basically, Shigure shows up to her bookstore to kind of bust her balls, and then he sets up a whole thing where Hattori shows up there to get a book, and she's like, "Oh my god, I haven't seen you in so long," and she has all these feelings rushing back. And it just plays more into Shigure being like this schemer,
evil mastermind.
Yeah,
maybe not evil, but
bored.
Bored mastermind.
It's like he wants to just, it's like character wants to set up this like drama so he can sit back and eat popcorn. And that's exactly what he does. And I really like this episode with her. I was into her and her story, and I don't know, I was into all of it. But it basically sets up to get to these parent-teacher meetings, which were kind of teased throughout the season until they happened. And we kind of, yeah, you had pointed this out before we started recording, but there's this theme of, the future of, the children of these teenagers.
Yeah.
They're all forced to reconcile like where they want to go in life.
And not only what choices they want to make, but what choices may or may not be afforded to them even, right?
Yes.
There's
specifically for the somas.
For the Soma specifically. There's quite a lot of that. But a little bit for Hana because she's got such bad grades. Like she doesn't have that many choices either.
He's like, I'm going to graduate. That's my plan.
What were the things on her application or her thing? Like her plans after graduation. Number 1 was escape to a foreign country. And number 2 was learn to be a housewife. I think those are the 2 things. That's her future as she envisions it. Yeah.
I just remember her being like bare minimum graduate.
Right.
High school.
Yeah.
Like that's it.
Yeah. They're all, her and all of her friends and everything are talking about like what they're going to do. And she says, oh yeah, in my conference, we decided that I should, finish high school. I'm like, well, yeah, but anyway.
That's funny. So I guess we'll start with Toru because her grandpa falls ill or something. He's okay, hurt his back, and he just is on bed rest, so he can't make it. And so Shigure nominates himself to go, clearly, as we learn, to further try to torment this teacher, Mayuko.
Yes.
Who is, their homeroom teacher. So, but I thought it was sweet, too, because Toru, she's so polite and so, I don't know, selfless that, she's just like, what? You want to do that? Like, she's so flattered and honored. And I think, even though their meeting is pretty awkward, she still feels really, loved. This is kind of how she is. But yeah, it turns into this whole thing of him just tormenting her. I can't even remember specifically, but I remember Toru. It was really funny, her reaction. I'm like, what is happening? Seems like there's a lot of tension here.
What was it she said? Diamond wind or something? I don't know. Maybe that's not in the dub.
Oh. Yeah, I'm like, oh.
Because at first it's like, she's like saying, it's like icy, like an icy wind between them or whatever. Yes. And then like the next one, it's like so much more intense that she's like, diamond wind, I think she says.
Yeah, there was, I forget exactly the terminology that he used in the dub, but yeah.
Anyway, yeah, it's
like awkward.
Yes, awkward.
But it was funny too, and it was amusing, and it was having all that set up for this teacher and her backstory, like it still, it just gave it so much more depth. Like they could have like half-assed that, and it would just been like mildly amusing, but I really enjoyed it. And then I suppose after that, we talked about Hanajima and stuff, but like Yuki, we can his actually ends up happening later. He has to reschedule it with his mom because he actually gets the courage to reach out to her and gives her, some an official, request on printed document with letterhead. I don't know. Probably. So proper and formal. Mm-hmm. And so we get introduced to his mom. She actually shows up, and she's, a bitch.
Yeah. Which we knew from all the flashbacks and stuff we've seen of her throughout the season. But yeah, she's just basically trying to railroad the conversation and say, oh, well, Yuki's going to do this and he's going to do this because that's what I want him to do. Yeah. She doesn't bother to listen to him or anything like that. And essentially it's going kind of the same way that his brother Ayame suggested. Is it Ayame?
Yeah.
Or Ayame?
Yeah.
Ayame? Okay.
Something like that.
Basically going the same way that he had suggested it was probably going to go. And he had volunteered himself to, come in instead of their mother. But Yuki said, no, it's fine. As it turns out, it wasn't. It went exactly the same way Ayame thought it was going to go. And then Ayame just shows up.
Yeah, he's a little late, but...
Yeah. And then the teacher's like, how did you even know when it was? It was rescheduled and everything. And he's like, oh, I just know things. Anyway, and he,
probably Shigure, is my guess.
Proceeds to, probably. He proceeds to sort of, I don't know, browbeat? Is that the right word? I don't know.
Well,
the
he kind of
mother.
puts her in her place, like,
Yeah.
or at least tries to. He's kind of
He,
Yuki's advocate, you know. Like,
yeah, he seems to be able to handle her. Like when she was talking, Yuki couldn't really get a word in edgewise, right?
yeah, complete
But
dominance.
but when Ayame's talking, it's sort of the same, except his mother can't get a word in
Yes,
edgewise, right?
yeah, and she's kind of losing her shit as you know
Yeah.
as the meeting goes on, and she ends up storming out.
Mm-hmm.
And then Yuki chases after her, and you know, which was a good scene. Like he just tells her, like, "Hey, I'm going to make my own decisions, and you know, this is this is my life." And she once again storms off, but he has that moment of at least telling her that, which is good for his sake.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I guess we didn't touch on like with Yuki and Ayame, like up until throughout the season up until this point, there had been some they had grown a little closer. Like Yuki went and visited his shop.
Yeah,
And,
Yuki's been putting in some effort into sort of accepting Ayame how he is,
yeah,
basically, and yeah, he goes and visits the shop and gets annoyed with him, but at the same time is like, well, at least I understand him a little bit better now.
yeah, he's trying.
Yeah.
And then after this whole parent teacher thing, where he, Ayame, essentially saves him
Right.
from the torment of his mom, and Yuki makes a point to thank him, and it goes straight to Ayame's head in typical fashion for him. But it was cool. It was cool to see them become a little closer, like in that way. That was cool. And then I think this brings us to Kyo.
Yeah, he doesn't fill out his form about what he's going to be doing in the future, and he has his teacher Kazuma.
I think Kazuma.
Kazuma.
Yeah, so he's essentially, because at the end of last season, Kyo kind of embraced him as they embrace each other as like father son, even though they're not related, but he's been there for him.
I mean, he's probably.
They
I mean, he's got to be Kyo's legal guardian, right?
Yeah, I imagine so. Yeah.
Oh, like related, yeah, but like distant related.
Yeah,
probably.
distant. Yeah.
Anyway,
but familial, like.
Yeah, presumably he's Kyo's legal guardian, so he would be the one that would show up for something like that.
And we should also establish too with the beach house, because we learn,
which we haven't got to yet.
I know, but we're kind of I'm kind of waiting, like, to get to the main part of that. But like, it ties into Kyo in this instance because we learn, essentially they do a beach house vacation, and it's just like the main, kind of core of the kids. But then Akito shows up at a nearby Soma. How many freaking vacation beach houses they got?
He's at the beach house annex.
Oh yes, that's right. It's the annex. How silly of me. And there's this whole thing throughout that arc of the beach house where Kyo and Toru are left to their own devices, where all the other people are summoned to the annex. But then there's a point where Kyo is also summoned, and we learn of this deal that the two have made, which seems rigged, but
sort of made, I guess. I don't know. It was a deal that was proposed by Akito, never really accepted by Kyo, but
that doesn't matter, right?
That doesn't matter. Akito has said this is the way it is. That's the way it is, because Akito is, the head of the Soma family.
And we'll get into more. We learn a little bit more about his power and stuff. So we'll get to Akito. But yes, the deal is that if Kyo can't beat or best Yuki by the time they graduate, that Kyo will be then have to be locked up in a cell, much like the cats that came before him. And I'm wondering about this because like clearly Akito is convinced that the cat can never beat the rat. I'm assuming it's like this like age old thing, right? It ties into the Zodiac story, but it's like he's making this wager with him because he knows that there's no way in his mind, based on history, that he will beat him, even though we don't really know what that means. Like beating him up in a fight, or besting him in some other way. But yeah, so all that's kind of necessary when he sits down with his master to talk about his future, because it's kind of hanging over him of like he's already kind of accepted his fate of being locked up. So it's like, look, thinking about his future is kind of moot. But I think Toru gives him hope, or just that idea that he could strive for something more.
But Kazuma says, well, you don't have to decide right now. You might take a little longer than the others, but, take your time, figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. So he's sort of supporting him in that way. Like, maybe it's not as black and white as you think it is, or something. Yeah.
It's not addressed any more than that, but it's something for him to cling on to.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I guess that kind of brings us into like Toru and Kyo, like their relationship this season, because as we already established, Yuki views her as a maternal presence in his life and really respects her for that, but maybe not so much a romantic role. But for Kyo, it's like, we have some evidence that there might be something there. They're in a play together. I'm trying to think of what else. There's definitely other moments. I mean, clearly the end of last season, she learns about his hideous beast form and still stays by his side, and comforts him in that way. Aside from that, there are other moments, I know, but they're kind of cumulative.
Yeah, it's always just like a lot. It's like a lot of little things throughout. Nothing specifically that really stands out until we get to the play.
Yeah.
Which is part of the cultural festival that Yuki organized, and his role as the president of the thing and president of the student body. What was it?
Student council.
Student council, yeah.
You didn't think we'd come back to this, did you, listener?
We finally made it back. It only took us an hour.
We got a timer going. So essentially they're putting on a Cinderella play.
Ish.
Yes. Originally it's supposed to be Cinderella. Yeah. And Kyo gets cast. Everyone wants Yuki to be the prince, of course. But he's busy, he can only play a minor role of some other character. And so for whatever reason, Kyo gets cast as, it's got to be a Soma. But Kyo gets cast as the prince. He's
the other prince in the class, really.
That's true.
You've seen these other guys?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like white toast.
Not a lot to choose from there.
Yeah. The class was designed that way, I guess. Yeah. But yeah, so obviously Kyo doesn't want to do it, and he's like, being a baby about it. Toru gets cast as the evil stepmother, which is
stepsister.
Our stepsister.
Yeah.
Which is, amuing.
That was apparently arranged by Yuki fan club girls that are in the class, because they want to cast her in an evil role so that Yuki will think she's evil and ugly or something.
It's so dumb.
Yeah. But then one of them somehow gets cast as the evil stepmother.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So it's like
a little comedic backlash there. Yuki gets cast as the fairy godmother.
Yep.
That's basically it, right?
I think so. But then while they're rehearsing...
Hana gets cast as Cinderella.
Hanajima is Cinderella. Yeah. And then Uotani is like the king or something, or...
She's like just another prince or something.
Oh, okay. Or like a knight or something, yeah.
Yeah.
Some royal standing.
Yeah. But I think that's just in the second revision. I don't know that she was anything in the first revision. I'm not sure.
I thought she was, but yeah.
Maybe she was.
Yeah. So while they're rehearsing it, they kind of have an epiphany that it isn't really working. Like Toru can't be evil. It's not in her. Like, who would have guessed? And they realize that Kyo is not going to show up. He hasn't been showing up, but they're like, well, maybe he will show up if we kind of make, gear his character more towards him, and kind of pander to him a little bit. And so they create this whole different Cinderella story, which I kind of like as like, Cinderella redux. Like, let's do it our way.
Yeah. And so then they do the play.
They do the thing.
And it all goes pretty well. Sometimes people go off script a little bit.
And when they go off script, they reveal personal details. Yes. Not like specifics, but like emotional feelings.
Yes, they are definitely revealing their own emotions when they mess up. And during this, it's just sort of revealed that Kyo. I mean, we know that Kyo cares about Toru. Obviously, that's been kind of hammered in from very early on in the show.
Yeah.
But we also, I guess, learned that maybe Toru is realizing that she has feelings for Kyo beyond just taking care of him like she does with all of her friends, Like she's always looking out for other people, but like she has stronger feelings about him than others, it seems.
Yeah.
It's really just lightly hinted at, but
and clearly she's like not she always cares more about other people, trying to make everyone else happy, and she doesn't really pay a lot of attention to herself. And so it kind of makes sense that she wouldn't know how she feels, Yuki versus Kyo or some other person, or she's at that time in her life when it's these things start to bubble up like soda pop. Shout out to that. Nobody listened to that episode, but
it's really, really under listened.
Yes.
I was going to say underwatched, but
underperformed.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
And it's probably just because people haven't seen that movie.
They don't know what the heck it is.
Yeah. So go watch that movie, and then you can listen to our podcast about it.
Maybe in a couple of years that movie will, blow up for some reason.
Maybe it was good. I liked it.
Yeah, it's a solid movie.
It wasn't like outstanding or anything, but it was good.
Yeah, it's worth your time.
Hmm.
It's on Netflix. But yeah, damn it, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so she hasn't really like considered her own feelings, and it's perfectly in character. But it's kind of funny just because of so many during this play, when it leads up to this scene where they each kind of have a moment where they blurt out something emotionally revealing. There's a lot of comedic parts too, with like Hanajima, just eating all the time and like just only caring about food.
Yakiniku.
Yes. And then with Kyo, of course, him like, basically like not wanting to advance the plot like he's supposed to in this in this play. But then they're like, well, you're doing it. They have like an announcer guy that's like,
narrator.
Despite what he said, narrator. Like, despite what he said, he felt differently. And then so it's like it's already set this trend of people like blurting out, just personal stuff about them and kind of, tailoring it to their personalities. And so it's already set the stage for literally. To reveal some of this emotional stuff. And then also to tie it back to Uotani, she also has a moment where she doesn't mention Koreno by name, but she blurts out, missing a person, and, you shouldn't take for granted, person in your life.
Blurts out some latent emotions that she's carrying around with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she had to get it out.
Sort of in character. Like hers is pretty out of character. But,
yeah.
I mean, it's in character, but doesn't make sense. Like what she's saying doesn't make sense for the character, I guess.
Yes,
But,
yeah.
Anyway.
But knowing what she's, it's like immediately obvious what she's referring to.
And then after the play, we find out that Hanajima has recorded it.
Yes. Or was it? It was Momiji, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not Hanajima. Hanajima was
got a J in there.
Cinderella.
Like, how did you film it? You were in it.
Yeah, Momiji.
It'd be funny if she had a camcorder the whole time.
That would be. She's just up there eating meat with a camcorder. Momiji has recorded it, and Toru asks Momiji, "Oh, can I get a copy of that?" And Momiji very knowingly says, "Oh, would you rather I just give it to?" What's his name again? Kureno?
Koreno, yeah.
Kureno. Would you rather I just give it to Kureno myself? It'll be easier for me. And she's like, how'd you know that's what I wanted? Or something like that. He said, it's pretty obvious, Anyway, so
yeah, and
I don't know where we're going from here.
Well, yeah, that's kind of a nice segue because we touched on the Kyo and Toru stuff, but then Momiji brings this like a burnt DVD to Koreno, and so it gives him a chance to see it, and it culminates in this scene. So in this last part is wrapping up when I talk about Koreno to Akito but then Akito to Toru. So it's like Kureno, we learn as one of the reveals at the end of the season that that he has somehow broken the curse. He was originally the rooster.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about anything that's been revealed at the beach house yet.
Oh, that's true. I guess we should go back to that. I mean, most of that to me ties into Toru, but
yeah, but there's yeah, it all ties to Toru, but
yes.
like Akito basically says to Toru, like they're all the zodiac, and the story is like God called all of them together, and essentially in that story, I am God. Yes. I am the God of the Soma family. I'm not just the head of the Soma family.
Yeah.
I am the God, and they all have a link to me. And so breaking the curse is breaking that link, because if they go against what Akito says, then they, I guess, feel some sort of actual physical pain or something, is sort of what's
I guess so.
said.
Yeah, because it's like just like they have the power to transform into these animals. I don't know if you really call it a power, it's a curse, but he has, what he's been imbued with is this like power over them, this like lordship that goes beyond just like a, familial thing, right? Like it's like, yeah, he has some hold over them, I don't know, metaphysically, or I don't know, beyond the flesh.
Right. But somehow Kureno has broken that.
Yeah.
And he basically doesn't have to do what Akito says anymore.
Except that he does.
He doesn't have to.
He doesn't have
but
to.
But he does it.
Yeah.
Out of, I guess, guilt, pity, whatever.
Yeah, because we learn that, we get like backstory, and we learn that Akito is the first to learn or to catch on that Kureno, has broken the curse. And so they make a pact, that they will keep that secret together so that Akito doesn't lose his hold over the rest of them, or send everyone into a frenzy of how to break the curse and whatnot, and give them false hope or real hope. But yeah, so he's essentially like goaded Kureno into keeping this secret and ensuring his power, right? Like that's how I took it.
Yeah, I guess.
But Kureno doesn't. I don't know. So okay, so this after he sees the DVD, it clearly touches him, but then he sets, he calls, Shigure's place, trying to get to Toru, and ends up telling Shigure about it. I'm not sure why, since he's kept it secret for so long. But then he, and maybe Shigure just surmises it because he was already onto him.
It seemed like Shigure already knew, basically, and when he called, Shigure basically said, "Oh, are you calling about you having broke the curse?" or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we only hear what Shigure is saying, but yeah, it's essentially like, yeah, he was already, had his number down.
Yeah.
And so right after that, Kureno finds Toru. Not sure how that happens. It just kind of cuts to it. Like Shigure sends her out to go buy something and buy envelopes, and they come across each other in a park, and it's when he reveals this to her. And he's essentially saying like, I can't be with, anyone. I guess he's saying that first, but then he reveals that he broke the curse and that he could be with Uotani, but he's made this pact.
He made a promise, right?
With Akito. So he's very conflicted. And, yeah, so it's interesting because it opens up the possibility, like, oh no, like it not only opens up the possibility that you can break the curse, but that Kureno himself could be with Uotani, and is that where they're going, or is that like, will that be, they've set this up so much that maybe that'll be the case, but yeah, I guess we need to.
As far as Toru just randomly running into Kureno, I think that was sort of orchestrated by Shigure. Like that's why he sent her to get the envelopes.
I guess so.
Because he knew that Kureno was going to be there.
So he's helping him, even though, I don't know. It's interesting because Shigure just so often seems to not really be on anyone's side.
Oh yeah, he's just like stirring the pot, and he knows this is going to stir the pot even more.
For the rest,
more,
for
right?
Akito and everyone else.
Yeah.
So it's not about like looking out for Toru. It's about getting to someone else or
making something interesting happen.
Yeah.
Being entertained.
Which is fair. Yeah. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's the reveal with Akito left, and the stuff that happened at the beach house climaxes in Akito. What is he? He slaps Toru or something.
Like scratches her face.
Oh yeah, and she draws blood, and then we see that like Kyo, or I don't know if it's Kyo, but like most of them, are watching from like the house when they're outside when it happens, and they just kind of let it happen. But it kind of shows that the power dynamic there, that they're not going to step in even when it's Toru being
like Momiji was there when Toru first came out, I think, and then Akito started being evil Akito, and so then Momiji went and got someone to help.
At least Yuki, and I think Haru, like, because after that scene that cuts to like inside, and they're like all like clearly watching it happen. But I don't think Kyo was there. I think it was, those other guys.
Yeah, no, Kyo wouldn't have been there because
I think he probably would have ran out there.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think Kyo was still at the other beach house or whatever. But yeah, who is it that comes to her rescue then? Is it
well, I think eventually Shigure and Hattori come out,
okay.
yeah. But yeah, so essentially just set, we get to see in action like how powerless they are in front of Akito.
Right.
Even when it's Toru. And and then we learn, from his words that he has this godlike power over them. But yeah, and so at the end, I'm trying to think what else is left, but yeah, there's the big Akito reveal.
Yeah, not that big, but
yeah, but it's
super not a big reveal if you watch the 2001 version of Fruits Basket.
And so that is that Akito is not a guy. He's a female. He's a lady.
Yes.
Who is kind of hiding that fact, but
I guess,
or at least not making it obvious.
Yeah, and who Kureno is the one that reveals that?
I think so. Right? Yeah, because it's in that last episode. It must be.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's not a super impactful reveal. I guess it'll probably mean more and play into things more in the next season.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, if you watch the original 2001 version of Fruits Basket, they didn't disguise Akito as a nondescript or hiding as a male character or anything like that. Akito was just a very clearly female character, I think, the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah. So I guess maybe that's why that one never went on. I don't know why they decided to.
They kind of shot themselves in the foot.
Yeah, I don't know why they decided to do that, and that might be the reason that the mangaka really hated that version.
Oh, maybe
part of it. That and the fact that it was comedied up a whole bunch,
Yeah. Which is funny because there's clearly a lot of comedy, but they put it up to 11, I guess.
I mean, it's overall it's a pretty serious drama, but there are like sort of light chuckle moments, things to just sort of lighten things up momentarily. Just not to completely beat you down with the drama.
Yeah, but every episode has those sprinkled in, so it's not like
you
may have like a chunk of an episode that's really dramatic and emotional and heart-wrenching, but then they'll later we'll have some lighthearted things to
but the original one went like
way
up to
goofy.
11 on that.
And so you had an interesting idea because we were talking about this before we started recording, but I was like, that's an interesting reveal for Akito, but what does it really signify? And you were talking about like maybe a suitor, like changes like the dynamic of like who Akito would want to be with, if that's even an option.
Right. There's that. I mean, at first I was saying like it might sort of explain Akito's hatred towards Toru, because Akito sees herself as the head of the family, the mother of the family, matriarch, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas Toru's kind of stealing some of that. So maybe that's something that it's going for. But yeah, Yuki was essentially given to Akito at a young age. to be a playmate, someone for Akito to have a friend around, basically. But it, with the reveal that Akito is female, sort of makes me wonder if maybe Akito was supposed to end up marrying Yuki or something, possibly.
Yeah.
Like if that was the plan, I don't know. It hasn't really been revealed, but like I
Yeah,
guess
could
that's a
be.
possibility, and maybe that's why another reason Akito hates Toru so much is she's sort of stealing
See
Yuki
that.
away, sort
Yeah.
of.
But it's interesting too because like as we learn with like Hachuri and stuff, and the lady he was going to marry, Akito didn't approve. But I wonder if it's like, you know, like possessive, like keeping, her guy Soma's close to her
Mm,
and not wanting, to let them, have some other girl, or take, I don't know, further take them away from her, him. I don't, we don't know what to refer Akito is, um, but yeah, I don't know. It's interesting, like because clearly there's a possessiveness going on there, but
yeah, and
Akito
Akito
doesn't care
also,
about all the male somas.
yeah. Well, and Akito also had a problem with Rin.
Yes, that too.
Um, and yeah, you kind of hinted at like the Hattori thing
Mm,
where Akito basically drove Hattori away from his girl that he was going to marry. I think
yeah,
like they went to Akito with the intention of saying getting approval to get married,
yeah,
and Akito didn't like that. So yeah, I don't know. Akito's got like a reverse harem going on, sort of thing. Maybe I don't know.
yeah, maybe. And I'm curious, like this next season's got to give us more of like Akito's backstory, and I imagine that's coming.
Mm,
Um, yeah, kind of because we've gotten a little bit more this season, but a lot of it has still been kept in the dark about Akito.
yeah, and there. I mean, one of the main things is like with Yuki. Like Yuki enjoyed playing with Akito for a long time, and then he says like one day Akito just sort of snapped and went
Mm,
crazy. So,
yeah.
wondering if there's some factor that played into that caused that
Mm,
to happen at that time or something, which
yeah.
I'm assuming there's got to be something, right?
Yeah, I kept speculating in my head that just on the basic notion that, once, as Akito's growing up, once he or she realized that they had all this power, over that they were basically the head of the Soma household, that maybe it just went to
Mm,
Akito's head,
mm,
But I imagine there's more to it than that. But it just seemed like an obvious, thing. But for a kid to be handed like all this power.
yeah. And then we've got all of Akito's attendants that we see from time to time.
Mm,
There's that one old lady that
yeah,
they feature a little too much. Like she's got to be something important. Like I don't
yeah,
know, Akito's mother or something. Maybe
maybe,
I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Um,
She's been shown enough that it's like we
yeah,
recognize her.
and she seems to have more power than a lot of the others uh, in the household. So yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of loose ends to be tied up, but we got 13 episodes to do it. I'm pretty sure we can get it done, right?
Yeah, I feel good about it. I guess just some loose ends. Yuki ends up in the end of the season standing up to Akito, not really being that bold, but just basically saying like I don't want to blame everyone. I don't want to blame other people for my misfortune. I'm trying to take ownership of my life and the things I do. But then after he says that, there's some look in his eye that
Mm.
reminds Akito. I didn't really catch that. It reminded Akito of something, but it just loses his. Akito loses.
Well, I mean, that's something Akito says a lot. Like, what does that look in your eye
Yeah.
before going bonkers, basically?
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, a look of, um, I can't think of the word.
Yeah.
Um,
And if it's like, I don't know what it is. If it's just someone looking like they have an independence and like not
mm,
being subservient to him, or like, or
yeah,
showing some sort of confidence that is, yeah, counter to the dynamic. But who knows? There's probably some trauma associated with it.
Yeah, I don't know. Descent, I guess, is the only thing I can think of. Not descent like down, but descent.
Yeah.
I don't know. I had a better word a minute ago, but it fell out of my head, so I don't remember it.
Yeah.
Okay, other loose ends?
I mean, there's probably more. I think that's it that I can think of right now. So we talked about Yuki, Uotani, and Koreno. It's kind of their relationship left open-ended. I'm not sure. We learned all that stuff about Koreno. Rin and Haru, still at odds. Rin is still not that close with Toru. Like, she's closer, but she's still kind of like, resistant. And she doesn't know about Koreno yet.
Right.
Even though she suspects he knows something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so that's kind of it. I mean, I think. I know we didn't cover everything. There's other stuff I want to talk about. Maybe we'll save it for the end, just the themes and metaphors for some of the stuff, like the Soma family and the curse. And, I want to dig into that stuff a bit more, but maybe we can hold off. We got 13 more episodes. But yeah, did you have anything else you wanted to add or expound upon?
Nothing that I can think of, actually. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah. Did you like this season? Was it an improvement on the last one for you?
Yeah. I mean, well, last season was sort of like rewatching the original one, like the story is pretty parallel. There's some differences, obviously, but the story of last season wasn't new.
Yeah.
The story was the same, essentially. And so this was all new stuff to me, other than, the couple things, like I said, that they sort of shoehorned into the first original season, like the visiting, what's his name?
Oh, Ayame's.
Visiting Ayame's dress-up shop, yeah. That was shoehorned into the first season for some reason, I guess, because they thought it would be good comedy. And then, the fact that Akito is a female, not sure why I don't know why they did that, but
dropped the ball on that one.
Those are the only things that were in the original first season that weren't in, well, not the only things, but you know what I mean. Things that came up in this second season that had been shoehorned into the original first season for one reason or another. But other than those things, it was all new story to me. And yeah, it was good. I mean, it's good, like, interweaving of stuff, and you've got these different episodes that seem to focus on different characters. Like, there's a Yuki episode, but it's not all just Yuki, obviously, and it's not all just Yuki doing the same thing. Like, they could have just had Yuki being student council president, but the whole episode is about him, but he sort of bounces through a few different things, and I don't know. Yeah, the same with a lot of the other characters.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that, and especially with the student council stuff. Like, they could have easily just used it as a vehicle for him to grow, just like telling us rather than showing us, but went through the effort of like having us get to know some of these student council members and, kind of writing them into the arc as well, where it's like, I mean, Machi for one, but Manabe as well. Like, he's, I've grown to like him a bit. It's not super deep, his characterization, but it's like it's enough that it's nice. Like, it helps service everything without making it seem just like, okay, yeah, he grew, I guess. But we actually get to see it over the course of the season, not just like in one episode where it's like, oh wow, he changed, but they plant that seed and they see it through. It's nice.
The other thing that was nice about this was they did a beach episode without doing a standard beach episode. Like, it was, there was still like drama and important things happening. It wasn't just, girls in bikinis, because I mean, Toru was in a one piece, so it wasn't even a bikini. But yeah, I don't know.
And that was a swimsuit that from the first season they had all like, wanted to get her and do something nice for her. So we got to see that pay out with, them, going to the beach and having fun to a certain extent. And then Yeah, and that's true. And I liked that because when they were like, "Oh, we're doing the beach thing," I was like, "Oh, great, here we go."
Right.
And then it turned into like I think it was like a 3 or maybe 4 episode arc, and it was really satisfying. Like it was the first part of that second season where I was like, "Okay, like here we go." I am more invested than I was.
Yeah, and there were some like lighter parts, like they were setting off the fireworks or whatever.
Splitting the watermelons.
Splitting the watermelon and stuff. But, it still gave some room for character moments and things as well. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a nice subversion of the standard beach episode.
I agree. And they've done that a few times. Like the cultural festival, like the whole Cinderella-ish. I love that whole scene. Like it was funny. It was, it had like these sort of dramatic moments of people revealing things. And it was entertaining. Like, I don't know, it was cool. And they didn't spend like several episodes like rehearsing that and building up to it. It was kind of like, no, we're rehearsing. Or they cast it, we're rehearsing, and now we're doing it. And it's a nice pacing there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good overall. I don't know what I suppose I probably gave it like a 7, I would guess.
I think I was like a light 7 on the first season, and this is definitely like strong 7. Like, I imagine this is going to end nicely, and so it'll probably put it up to an 8 for me. But
probably, I don't remember what I gave the first season. Like I say, it's hard to separate it from the original.
Yeah,
in some ways. So I don't know. It was probably a 6 or a 7 though for the first season. Yeah. Anyway, nice. But yeah, it was good, and I definitely look forward to seeing the final 13 episodes whenever we get around to covering that. It's a few weeks away, I think, right?
Yeah, we have it on the schedule, but I forget exactly. But yeah, we'll be getting into it within the next month.
Yeah,
and check us out then. See what we thought, and let us know what you think.
And if you want to let us know what you think, you can find us on the interwebs everywhere at UmLikeAnime. That's UMLikeAnime. We're on Twitter. We're on Facebook. We're on all the things. Patreon. Our Discord has been getting... Oh, I do need to finish setting that up, huh? There is a link to our Discord on our Patreon. It's available to the public. You don't have to be a Patreon to get it. But I don't think I've actually put a link to our Discord on our website yet, which I need to do. But we've been getting a little bit more traffic and conversation happening on our Discord lately. So that's a good way to talk to us as well, if you want to. And if you happen to be a patron, you will get access to a patrons only area on our Discord. So yes, you can get on our Discord and talk to us, and Facebook, Twitter, I already said those things. All the places, YouTube. Yeah, that's it. Well, thanks for tuning in, and
see you next week. I'll use it.
No, don't.